Last night's operation took a major terrorist leader off the battlefield, and it sent a strong message to terrorists around the world. We will come after you and find you.
President Biden taking a victory lap this morning after a counterterrorism raid in Syria takes out the reigning leader of the Islamic State.
And joining us now to talk about it, William Muck, professor of political science at North Central College. And Professor Muck, thanks for being with us. Maybe you can put this in perspective in terms of how this might impact the Islamic State. What do you make of this? How big of a deal is it?
Well, you know, the Islamic State has gone under a pretty dramatic transformation over the last decade. And in 2014, 2015, at the height of their power, they controlled large areas of Iraq and Syria. And since then, it's been downhill. In 2019, they were driven out of that territory. And so they've basically been underground. And over the last couple months, you're seeing them try to make a resurgence in Syria. There's some talk about whether they want to be in Afghanistan. But they're really a much, much weakened organization. Now, they still pose a threat to the region, but not nearly the threat that they would have been about a decade ago.
Well, let's talk about that resurgence you mentioned. Within the last few weeks, ISIS fighters have carried out offensives at a prison, housing extremists in Syria, attacked an army barracks in Iraq. Is ISIS growing stronger? If so, how?
Well, I think they're trying to reassert themselves. And even the Secretary of Defense today said that, you know, they've got a strategic plan. They want to reassert their presence. I wouldn't be surprised if you see them emulate more of like Al-Qaeda, an underground terrorist network. They're simply not going to be able to gain territory like they did, you know, in 2014, 2015. So more likely, you're going to see them carry out terrorist attacks in the region and potentially, you know, maybe try to be more global. But the reality is they're a much smaller player now.
Professor, what's your take on how this might impact things for President Biden? Does this have a chance to improve his overall rating? You know, what happens in that sense, do you think?
Well, you know, Joe Biden has had a tough go domestically. So, you know, the voting rights legislation didn't get through. Some of the spending bills didn't get through. So he's taken a hit domestically. This allows him, I think, to have an easy win. And when you pair that with what's going on in Ukraine and Russia and U.S. leadership on NATO, I think foreign policy is giving him a leg to stand on and giving some strength. You know, domestic policy, trying to get something through Congress, presidents are often limited, but when you go to foreign policy, there are much fewer constraints. And we're seeing Biden probably at his best. I mean, he has lots of experience in foreign policy, going all the way back to the Senate. So this is a comfort area for him, and he doesn't have to deal with Congress. So I think this is an area that is going to be a bright spot for him.
All right, Professor William Muck from North Central College. Thanks for taking the time and explaining all this for us.
Good to be with you.
See you soon.